Here's a question. How did they do this? Along with many other things, my favorite Wong Kar-wai movie, Chungking Express, is a story about time, expiration dates, repetitive habits, and clocks marking the end or beginning of an hour. The film is full of motifs that represent time's relationship with our relationships, how our memory affects our perception of love, how time can hold us back from what we want most, or force us to move forward. In Chungking Express, many things come in twos. Instead of following a set of characters as they go from point A to B throughout its entire runtime, it splits its film into two films, following two characters as they go from point A to B, then 41 minutes in switching focus towards two entirely different characters. It just completely swaps protagonists midway through without ever coming back to the main characters in the first story. What keeps it from feeling like two random short films slapped together is the crazy amount of cross-references and parallels which serves as the connective tissue that binds the entire film together. The basic synopsis of both stories are the same. Each story is a romantic comedy starring a heartbroken policeman trying to cope with a recent breakup and then falling in love with another woman. A few big differences between the stories are their genre, visual style, and time frame. Because of unfortunate scheduling, the stories had to be shot by different cinematographers. Story number 1 was shot by Andrew Lau, who also shot Wong Kar-wai's first feature film As Tears Go By, which is a fast and violent crime underworld romance tale similar to the first half of Chungking Express. Andrew Lau uses many of the same stylistic flares in the two films, including this trippy, slow, yet fast motion effect, which is accomplished by combining a technique called step printing with undercranking. You see, traditionally films are shot at 24 frames per second, meaning the camera captures 24 individual still frames to make up each second of film footage. When step printing, each frame is printed or duplicated. That way you can achieve the illusion of slow motion while also having this jittery and choppy effect. It's the same technique that Quentin Tarantino uses for his opening credits of Reservoir Dogs, in this case each frame being tripled. But here you can see that the characters' movements don't have that signature smeared blur that the sequences in Chungking Express do. That's where undercranking comes in. Undercranking is just a fancy way of saying that it's being shot at a lower frame rate. The lower the frame rate, the blurrier the movements, because of shutter speed, the amount of time that the shutter of the camera is open to capture one of those frames. Shutter speed is a product of frame rate. So at 24 frames per second, the shutter is open for 1/48th of a second. At 12 frames per second for 1/24th of a second. At 6 frames per second for 1/12th of a second. And with each wider increment of time that the camera is capturing that image, the more smeared that image appears to be, since it's capturing the progression of that movement throughout a longer amount of time. Story number 2 was shot by Christopher Doyle, who fittingly is the same guy who shot Wong Kar-wai's second feature, Days of Being Wild. Once again, the content of Days of Being Wild and story number 2 are similar. We are now watching a melancholic romantic comedy where each character takes too long to confess to the other, and more importantly themselves, that they have fallen in love. The most noticeable stylistic moment in the second part is this crazy diverging slow and fast motion effect, where the characters move in slow motion as the world goes by at lightning speed. This time, if you understand how step printing works, the way this effect was accomplished is deceptively straightforward. Basically what they did is they used the same combo of step printing and undercranking while making the lead actors move very, very slowly. It's basically a time lapse where the lead actors are moving so slow that even in a time lapse, they're in slow motion. A few minutes ago I said the big differences between the two stories were their genre, visual style, and time frame. We already talked about the first two, so let's talk about time frame. Story number 1 takes place over the course of a few days, while story number 2 takes place over an ambiguous stretch of many weeks or months. Story-wise, this is a direct result of the characters' decisiveness and the deadlines they set for themselves, as each story ends when its respective cop has fully gotten over their ex. The two main characters of story number 1, Cop 223 played by Takashi Kaneshiro, and the woman in the blonde wig played by Bridget Lin, are people who make decisions quickly, deciding to kidnap a girl or flirt with the next woman that walks into the bar at the drop of a pin. They are in sync with the world around them, narratively moving at the same speed as the smeared step-printed metropolis of retro Hong Kong. Their decisiveness is represented through their occupations. Each of them are on the opposite spectrum of the law, one a police officer and one a drug dealer. They are always chasing or being chased, immersed in environments where they need to make decisions quickly because their lives depend on it. They also have clear deadlines set for themselves, both on May 1st, and their story places a special emphasis on clocks as they mark the end or beginning of an hour or day. That way we can clearly see how much time passes throughout their story. So in this case, the step-printed effect is a way to emotionally charge and visually represent the speed and danger of the occupations of each character, their character trait of decisiveness, and the short time frame and tight deadline-focused narrative of story number 1. It's like story number 1's microcosm of how time feeds into its story. This all serves as a beautiful contrast to story number 2, where everything is flipped. The love interests in story number 2, Cop 663 played by Tony Leung, and Faye played by Faye Wong, are slow in taking action. So now their jobs are built around monotonous routine, walking the beat, getting lunch, cleaning, and serving food, again and again and again. Just like in story number 1, their occupations reflect their personality, as their encounters are similarly repetitive, meeting again and again without ever explicitly going anywhere romantically. The step-printed effect now highlights the diverging speed of the protagonists and the world around them. The world races by as they are caught inside the trappings of their own routines, taking too long to confess to the other person and themselves that they have fallen in love, failing to see what's right in front of them as time keeps on ticking by. In Chungking Express, Wong Kar-wai makes use of an unconventional and poetic narrative symmetry that is represented at a smaller scale through these effects. Through the stylization of these sequences, he tells two love stories at diverging speeds, one of initiative and one of idleness. In the first story, his characters are in sync with the world around them. In the second, they are not. Along with his cinematographers, Wong Kar-wai encapsulates so much in these small sequences. They are microcosms of their stories and characters. But beyond everything, they represent what only the medium of film can achieve. They charge the film with mood and a sort of kinetic energy that you don't need to analyze the meaning behind to feel the effects of.